Are you ready to uncover the hidden gems of African history? Prepare to be amazed. From ancient kingdoms to legendary queens, Africa's history is a rich tapestry of triumph, innovation, and resilience. Join us as we journey through centuries of culture, art, and untold stories that shaped the world. Discover the heroes, the empires, and the spirit of a continent that continues to inspire. Subscribe now, and let's unveil Africa's hidden past together.
The Rwandan Genocide, a deep scar on the conscience of humanity, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of hate. In 1994, the world witnessed the systematic slaughter of nearly 1 million people. This wasn't just a Rwandan tragedy, it was a failure of the entire world. The genocide stands as a chilling testament to the dangers of division and the urgent need for African unity. It reminds us that the principles of Pan-Africanism, solidarity, shared destiny, and collective self-reliance are not mere slogans. They are the very foundations upon which a peaceful and prosperous Africa must be built. This tragedy compels us to confront the darkness that can reside within the human heart. It forces us to acknowledge the international community's shameful inaction. And it calls upon us to learn from this horrific chapter in history to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. The Rwandan Genocide is not just a story of death and destruction, it is also a story of resilience, reconciliation, and the indomitable spirit of the human will. It is a story that demands to be told, remembered, and learned from, so that we may build a future where such horrors are consigned to the past. Before the genocide, Rwanda was often portrayed as a land of 1,000 hills and 1,000,000 smiles. It was a place of vibrant culture, breathtaking landscapes, and a strong sense of community. Beneath the surface, however, lay a complex social structure. Rwandan society was traditionally divided into 3 main groups: the Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa. While often simplified as ethnic groups, these distinctions were more fluid in pre-colonial times, based largely on social and economic roles. The Hutu, the majority group, were primarily farmers. The Tutsi, a minority, were often pastoralists and held significant political power. The Twa, the smallest group, were forest-dwelling hunters and gatherers. For centuries, these groups coexisted, intermarried, and shared a common language and culture. While there were undoubtedly tensions and power imbalances, the notion of a deep-seated and immutable hatred between Hutu and Tutsi was largely a creation of the colonial era. This manipulation of identity would have devastating consequences for Rwanda's future. The arrival of European colonial powers, first the Germans and then the Belgians, irrevocably altered the fabric of Rwandan society. Driven by their own racist ideologies and a desire to consolidate their control, the colonizers exploited and exacerbated existing social divisions. The Belgians, in particular, implemented policies that solidified the Hutu-Tutsi divide. They introduced identity cards that classified people based on ethnicity. They favored the Tutsi minority in education and administration, fueling resentment among the Hutu. This divide and rule strategy served the Belgians' interests, but planted the seeds of future conflict. As the winds of change swept across Africa in the mid-20th century, the struggle for independence ignited in Rwanda. However, the colonial legacy of division had poisoned the well of intergroup relations. The Hutu, long marginalized, demanded political and economic power. The Tutsi, fearing retribution, clung to their privileged position. The stage was set for a dangerous power struggle. In the years leading up to 1994, Rwanda descended further into chaos and violence. The Hutu-led government, fueled by extremist ideology, increasingly demonized the Tutsi population. Propaganda spread through radio broadcasts and hate-filled speeches, painting the Tutsi as a dangerous enemy that threatened the very existence of the Hutu people. Meanwhile, extremist militias, armed and trained with the support of hardline elements within the government, roamed the country, terrorizing Tutsi communities. Lists of individuals to be eliminated were drawn up. Weapons were stockpiled. The seeds of genocide were being sown, and the world remained largely oblivious. The international community, preoccupied with other crises and seemingly indifferent to the plight of a small African nation, failed to heed the warning signs. The United Nations peacekeeping force present in Rwanda was woefully under-resourced and lacked the mandate to intervene effectively. The stage was set for one of the darkest chapters in human history. Section 5. 100 Days of Horror Genocide Unleashed. On April 6, 1994, the Rwandan Genocide began with a horrific act of violence, the shooting down of a plane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu. Although the perpetrators remain unknown, Hutu extremists seized upon the tragedy as a pretext to unleash their carefully orchestrated plan of extermination. Over the next 100 days, an unimaginable wave of violence swept across Rwanda. Hutu militias, armed with machetes, clubs, and guns, slaughtered their Tutsi neighbors with brutal efficiency. Men, women, and children were hacked to death in their homes, churches, and schools. No one was spared from the orgy of violence. The Rwandan genocide was not a spontaneous outburst of violence. It was a meticulously planned and executed campaign of extermination, orchestrated by extremist elements within the Hutu government and carried out with chilling efficiency. The world watched in horror as the killing continued unabated, yet did little to stop it. Section 6. The World's Silence, a Legacy of Shame. As the Rwandan genocide unfolded, the international community stood by, paralyzed by indifference and inaction. Despite overwhelming evidence of the genocide, the United Nations refused to use the term genocide, fearing that intervention would require costly and politically risky action. The United States, still haunted by the memory of its failed intervention in Somalia, resisted calls for intervention. Other Western powers, preoccupied with their own domestic agendas, offered little more than empty condemnations. The Rwandan people were abandoned to their fate. The world's failure to act in Rwanda remains a stain on the conscience of humanity. It exposed the limitations of the international community's commitment to preventing genocide and protecting human rights. The Rwandan genocide serves as a chilling reminder of the consequences of indifference and the urgent need for a more just and responsive global order. Section 7. Rising from the Ashes, a Nation Rebuilt. In the aftermath of the genocide, Rwanda lay in ruins, its social fabric shattered, its economy in tatters, and its people traumatized. The task of rebuilding the nation seemed insurmountable. Yet, from the ashes of unimaginable horror, the Rwandan people summoned the strength to rebuild their lives and their nation. The Rwandan government, led by President Paul Kagame, embarked on an ambitious program of national reconciliation and reconstruction. The government prioritized unity and reconciliation, emphasizing that all Rwandans were victims of the genocide. They focused on rebuilding infrastructure, revitalizing the economy, and providing education and healthcare to its citizens. The Rwandan people, too, displayed remarkable resilience. They returned to their villages, cleared the rubble, and began the slow and painful process of healing. Neighbors who had once been perpetrators and victims now lived side by side, bound by a shared determination to rebuild their shattered lives. Section 8. Justice and Reconciliation, the Gacaca Courts. In the wake of the genocide, Rwanda faced the daunting challenge of delivering justice for the victims and reconciling a deeply divided society. Traditional courts were overwhelmed by the sheer number of cases, and the government sought an alternative approach rooted in Rwandan traditions. The Gacaca Courts, a system of community-based justice, were revived to address the crimes committed during the genocide. These courts, presided over by elected community members, provided a forum for victims to confront perpetrators, for perpetrators to confess their crimes and seek forgiveness, and for communities to begin the process of healing. While the Gacaca courts were not without their critics, they played a vital role in promoting reconciliation and rebuilding trust within communities. They provided a sense of closure for victims and offered perpetrators a path towards redemption. The Gacaca courts stand as a testament to Rwanda's commitment to justice and reconciliation in the face of unimaginable adversity. Section 9. Remembering the Past, Shaping the Future. 21 years after the genocide, Rwanda stands as a beacon of hope and resilience. The nation has made remarkable progress in rebuilding its economy, promoting reconciliation, and fostering a sense of national unity. However, the legacy of the genocide continues to cast a long shadow. The Rwandan genocide serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of hatred, division, and indifference. It compels us to confront the dark side of human nature, and to acknowledge that genocide is not a spontaneous event, but a process that can take root and flourish under certain conditions. The Rwandan Genocide also highlights the importance of Pan-African unity and solidarity. The international community's failure to intervene in Rwanda was a betrayal of the principles of collective responsibility and shared humanity. It underscores the need for African nations to work together to address shared challenges and to build a more peaceful and just continent. The Rwandan Genocide is a story of both despair and hope. It is a story of the human capacity for unimaginable cruelty, but also of the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. It is a story that demands to be told, remembered, and learned from, so that we may build a future where such horrors are consigned to the past. What I wish I knew about African history instead of Western history. If you love African history as much as we do, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more incredible stories from the rich and diverse continent of Africa. Don't miss out on our next adventure through time. Subscribe now and join our community of curious minds. See you in the next video.